Hi, I'm Tom Henriksen from the DevOps Online Summit, where we bring DevOps leaders to the world. In this session, we're going to talk about visible value streams with Steve Pereira. Steve, introduce yourself to the people here at the DevOps Online Summit.
Thanks, Tom. So I'm Steve Pereira. I'm up in Toronto, and I've been in the DevOps world for a very long time before it was called DevOps. I have a history in sort of systems engineering and automation and process and workflow optimization. And that sort of brought me to my current gig, which is as a consultant under my company, Visible. What we do is help teams visualize and optimize their workflows. And I primarily focus on software delivery life cycles.
Excellent. So you've been through the trials and tribulations of what we call this and how we're going to name everything.
Oh yeah, well, naming is always a challenge, especially in the DevOps world. I mean, we've all struggled with defining it and getting everybody on the same page. It's a continuous exercise, in clarity and alignment, which is frustrating, but also that's a part of how we work together, right?
Yeah, exactly. So to start us off, Steve, what does visible value streams mean to you?
Sure. So I think that from my perspective, a value stream is roughly, it can be a fancy name for a process. And there's a lot of people in the technical world who are allergic to the word process. So I tend to stay away from that unless I'm in a room full of fans. But where it comes from is really from traditional manufacturing, where value stream really captures all the activities that comprise creating and delivering value to customers. And coming from auto manufacturing, where it started out, we're talking about moving from raw materials like steel all the way to someone's driving a car off a lot. Yeah. And in the software world, that the scope of that really encompasses anything from an idea to a customer request or a task, or in some cases, we're even looking at a new hire and what does it take to get them onboarded and productive as part of the team. So whatever your process is, from my perspective, a company is really just a collection of value streams, and it covers all the activities inside of a company. If you don't have repeated practices that you're treating as processes, as things to optimize, you don't have much of a business. You're kind of just rolling with the punches. Yeah. But the more mature and the more defined your business becomes, the more this concept of value streams becomes valuable. And you start seeing everything as these interrelated series of value streams that can affect each other and very much affect quality, performance, value, and ultimately the revenue of the business. So it's really becomes something interesting when you can use the same kind of terminology. As we go back to the idea of terminology, speaking in value streams really resonates with the business side, with product folks, with people in sales, people in success and support. A value stream is something that I think can speak to everyone, and that's where I see a lot of the value is in having this common paradigm and lexicon that everyone can see the big picture together.
Yeah, it's so important to have just really a picture, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it speaks to most people, and part of what I do beyond defining a graphical representation of a value stream is also to illustrate it in something like a spreadsheet, so that even if you only speak data, that's your primary mode of understanding. Yeah. You get something that is a representation that speaks to you, and I think that's what's so powerful, because so much in the tech world, it resonates with people who are very technical, and people who aren't just feel left out or feel like people are talking over their heads. And so I think it's very, very important to find these these paradigms and practices that really resonate with everybody. And I think that diversity and inclusion is such a great outcome from one of these exercises.
Yeah, definitely. So Steve, walk us through, how do we start the process?
Sure. So I've created something that I bundle it all in the same package called my value delivery system. But essentially, when you're looking at a value stream, it's important to educate everybody on what that means. So I start out with a webinar that introduces the fundamental ingredients and ideas, so that everyone can understand what a value stream is. Because a lot of people, they know what a process is, they know they don't like them, but they don't necessarily know what a value stream is and how that's a little bit different. So introducing the concept, and we can get into that a little bit later, but starting out with some education to bring everybody into the same onto the same page and the same understanding. Then we go to a current state value stream map. So what is the current situation? I think that's really valuable, because we don't often step away from our work to see how are we working, right? What does it look like for us to do our work? And you kind of build out this picture that everybody can contribute to, depending on roles and how many people are available, and we'll touch on it later. But the current state map identifies different risks and opportunities. You're creating a flow diagram that's not just your typical flow diagram. That's a series of steps. The value in a value stream map is in the measurement and the data involved. So you layer on top of the steps in the process the measurement of each step. And what is the measurement of the wait time between each step, and where are the handoffs? Because that's where a lot of the time and frustration and bottlenecks appear. From that point, a future state value stream map is basically, what would this look like if we were to design it? What if we were to intentionally design a better state? So those are the two key components that make up most of the value of the process.
Yeah. So as you kind of alluded to before, Steve, who should be involved in the process? What roles, what types of people do we have at the table?
Therein lies a lot of the challenge. And I think that's where I come in and kind of help out teams identify where are we going to get the most value from this, from the perspective of, if we tie up the entire company for hours and hours, that's very expensive, right? And it's very difficult to coordinate. It's not very realistic. So where are we going to get the most bang for the buck? Ultimately, including as many people is valuable from a context perspective, from a diversity of perspectives point of view. And it's important to make sure that people are included and feel included. At the same time, tying up everyone is problematic. So I always try and strike a balance between, if people complain about the process, let's make sure that they're involved so they feel heard, they feel included. Let's make sure that key stakeholders are involved. So in some cases, that's very high leadership. I've had CEOs in value stream mapping exercises, and people who are sort of following the classic RACI matrix, responsible, accountable. I'm blanking on the C. But basically, people who are involved and effective is really important. In some cases, you don't want the CEO involved, because I can take the temperature of the organization and say that that would actually inhibit sharing, right? That would inhibit the ability for people to feel like this is a psychologically safe environment where we can share vulnerabilities and problems. So we kind of go through that, and I've had different situations where CEOs opted out because they want the team to be as candid as possible, and so that it really depends. But I think a diversity of perspectives is very important. Sometimes we have success or sales and marketing present because development they feel very confident, and then they throw things over the wall to success and say, here, go build a bunch of documentation, schedule a webinar to show off the features, and then everything gets piled on those folks. So It really depends on the situation, where we think the biggest bottlenecks are, and we can iterate on it. So as we create a value stream map, sometimes we reveal that certain areas aren't well represented, and we can go back and say, okay, let's fill in the gaps. And the other piece that I wanted to highlight was, this is typically between 10 and 15 people. Because you don't want too many chefs in the kitchen, but you want to minimize the cost of the organization of pulling these people out of their normal jobs to do this exercise.
So you bring these 10 to 15 people together. Then how long are you sitting, together? And then is there, I'm guessing, some follow-up behind that as well?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on how much detail we want to capture. I'm a big lean fan, so I really try to get the most value out of the minimum investment, and favor iteration over a big, humongous exercise to capture everything. So what that means in practice is usually between 2 and 4 hours for a current state value stream map, and we kind of iterate through the process. So depending on how things are going, we can stop at a point where we feel like we've got enough value to move forward. And really my goal for that initial session is to highlight 3 to 6 risks and opportunities that we can target. Anything beyond that, we're probably not going to get to in the near future anyways. So that would be wasteful. And so I'm always focused on what is going to give us enough information to move forward and to tackle our highest priority items with a high degree of confidence.
Okay, so you said 3 to 6 outcomes you're kind of going to focus on from that, and then to kind of give people amount of focus as they go forward. I'm guessing, do you try to solicit those outcomes early on in the process, or how do you kind of come upon those as you go through the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really, I try to sort of preload the exercise with a little bit of data collection about the current state from people's perspectives on what are the challenges that you see, where do you think the biggest bottlenecks are, and what would be a very valuable goal or outcome of this exercise. So just to make sure that we're collecting people's concerns up front, make sure that we don't ignore any glaring issues, because me coming in from the outside is a value to me being outside the organization. At the same time, I'm missing context. So it allows me to ask very good questions, very elemental questions, but also I want to make sure that I don't miss anything that is, the burning tire fire or the gorilla in the room, the elephant in the room or the gorilla, the 800-pound gorilla. We can do analogies all day. But I want to make sure that there's no high value opportunity that gets missed. So that collection of what are people struggling with right now? What do you feel like is holding you back? That can inform what kind of opportunities and risks that I target, because if I surface an opportunity that doesn't speak to one of their primary concerns, there may be a missed chance to really make some meaningful change, even if it's not one of the biggest bottlenecks. A lot of this is just making people feel better about their jobs and making them feel like they're getting the best outcomes. Yeah.
Excellent. So then you go through this process, you have the meeting, and then you start to track things, right? As you're moving forward, you want to track that progress, correct?
Yeah. So in terms of measurement, a lot of the absolute basic measurement that is involved is lead time, of course. So how long is everything taking? But we really actually cover all 4, for anyone who's familiar with the DORA 4 key metrics. Those map on extremely well to a value stream. So at different portions of the value stream will be represented by illustrating all the steps end to end. So lead time is obviously captured there. Deployment frequency actually factors in. You'll see that somewhere in the middle of the value stream. That's more centered on maybe the Scrum process or maybe the the later stages of a sprint where
Mm-hmm.
you're deploying code, how rapidly can you actually do that? And we'll capture that. We'll
Mm-hmm.
also capture MTTR, so mean time to recovery can be captured in the later stages of a software delivery lifecycle, where we're saying, okay, let's say we deployed something and we found out that we failed a smoke test. How quickly did we actually get that recovered?
Yeah.
And then the percentage about escape defects, there's actually quite a bit that you can capture in a value stream to represent quality. And you'll also capture it by looking at how often are we actually looping back to development because we've discovered something
Mm-hmm.
post-release or post-deployment. So I think that the DORA metrics are fantastic for mapping onto a value stream, and it really puts it in context for people in real terms.
Yeah.
Because there's not many representations that I know of the DORA metrics that kind of fit an illustration of a value stream
Mm-hmm.
or a software delivery lifecycle in terms that people can instantly understand how they actually map onto reality and how you would begin to measure them. And I think if we're talking about 2 to 4 hours to capture a current state value stream map, that's an incredible ROI versus instrumenting all of your workflow from end to end with 2 or 3 tools that you've got to stitch together and set up. And so on one hand, you're looking at 2 to 4 hours to capture that data. On the other hand, it could be 6 to 12 months. Mm-hmm. And I see tons of teams going the 6 to 12 month angle. And all of a sudden the business is like, when are you going to tell me what lead time is? When are we going to know? These basic metrics. Mm-hmm. And so this upfront investment of a couple hours, all of a sudden the business is getting this data that they've never seen before, and they're getting it so quickly that it can be just a light bulb moment for people.
Yeah. Excellent. So Steve, when you see, this being successful, what are some indicators or some of the big signs that, organization is really transformed and they're really seeing value?
Yeah, I think that this is kind of a new practice for a lot of teams. A lot of teams will do something similar. They'll map out a process, but there's no kind of measurement involved. And I think that the measurement is really what differentiates an attempt versus a success.
Yeah.
Because even if you were to succeed at a change initiative, unless you're measuring where you came from, it's very hard to celebrate progress. So where I see a lot of success and a lot of teams getting tons of value from this is the fact that not only are you capturing your progress, but exactly what progress you've made because you've got that current state baseline to measure from. And a lot of the times, you can struggle for weeks trying to capture where are we so that you actually know when you've made progress. But a lot of teams just dive into trying to improve. And then they get into the difficult position of trying to retrospectively capture how far have we come? How do we demonstrate that all this effort and time that we put into this exercise has paid off in terms that the business will understand? Because you need to build trust, right? I mean, these are different perspectives in the organization that they never see the same picture at the same time. And there's very little visibility from engineering to the business and business to engineering. So having this common artifact that brings everybody under the same understanding, I think that's where we see teams really level up when they take this seriously.
Wow, that's great. Steve, as we come to the close, do you have any closing thoughts to share?
Yeah, I think that I'm really encouraged by kind of the state of the industry and DevOps, and it's absolutely colored by circles that I run in where I see this all the time, but I'm starting to see a lot more people pay attention to value streams, and it's certainly something that you'll see coming out of the DevOps Enterprise Summit. Definitely resonates very strongly in enterprise environments, but being such a lightweight exercise, I think there's tons of value in a startup as well, and much much less mature environments. And in that case, you're sort of seeing different benefits in an organization where they don't have a lot of strict process or a lot of heavy defined infrastructure in terms of practices. The value can actually be in just that definition stage. So what does this look like? And then intentionally designing processes that work for the organization instead of organically growing them out of things that happen. So that intentionality and that aspect of design, I think, is very powerful. Whether you have a lot of definition that you're trying to now break down and get the value from, or you don't have a lot of definition and you're looking to scale or get a lot more clarity into what's going on. There's something there for everybody.
Well, thanks for coming on, Steve.
Thank you for having me. This was excellent. I love talking about this stuff.
We appreciate it. We hope you're enjoying the DevOps Online Summit. To gain lifetime access to this great content, make sure you upgrade for VIP tickets. On behalf of Steve Pereira, I am Tom Henriksen from the DevOps Online Summit.